Well, good evening. How are you doing this evening, Stephen?
Not bad, not bad. I hope you don't have any issues with that title.
Yeah, me too. I was kind of thinking, no, don't mess
It
up.
looks pretty tame. Looks pretty tame. I think we can get away with it.
Yeah,
I think we can get
I
away with
did
it.
switch out the song, so it's
Yeah, I
but
noticed
I
that.
shouldn't have a problem. But yeah, so we'll let
And
we'll let the chat roll in a little more before we say hello to them.
and I'm gonna be smoking cigarettes the whole time just for Rod, because he's a smoker.
Yep, yep. Okay, so Twilight Zone. Are you ready to get started? First of all, do you have any favorite episodes?
No, I don't think I have a single favorite episode. There's just far too many iconic episodes. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to bring up my list that I've got going here, but I mean,
Yeah, it you go looking for favorite episodes and you see others. Oh, I forgot about that one, and it just gets bigger and bigger. It's really hard to work it down to something uh, reasonable, for a stream or something.
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a list of just 34 episodes, and almost every single one of them are so iconic. You're like, how can I make a decision between these? I mean, between the kid that's basically in charge of the whole universe because he's got super mental powers,
Yeah,
or the devil that convinces some guy he's not the devil, and that's how he escapes a religious prison. I
yeah.
mean, Ernest Borgnine as like the librarian who hates humanity and then breaks his glasses. I mean, how many iconic moments does this
Yeah,
series
yeah.
have? It's almost every episode.
You're a bad man. You're a very bad man.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, that's creepy. That kid is creepy.
that episode is freaky as hell.
Yeah, it is. It is. And this one too.
My name is Talkie Tina, and I'm beginning to hate you.
That's just poor Telly Savalas.
Yeah, right. No wonder people are freaked out by dolls.
Yeah, and that kind of begins what I've been thinking about since I started re-exploring all of this. How many episodes, just in your recollection, are direct inspirations to contemporary pieces that don't mention that they were inspired by a Twilight Zone episode?
Right. There's so many.
Well, just the whole Annabelle series and Chucky are
Yeah.
from that episode, The Living Doll.
Also the yeah, the living. Oh, there's also a what do they call him? The puppet. There's a
Yeah.
ventriloquist.
Oh my God, that's right. There's a ventriloquist episode that does exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Even shows like Batman, the animated series. There's a ventriloquist who's controlled by the doll, but it's really he's got like two a split personality that comes out in the doll.
Right. Well, there is a villain, right? There's a puppet villain that's like a gangster.
Yeah, right. That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
And I forget how old that is. I think it might be based on the Twilight Zone episode, and that gave rise to him as a creation for Batman. I'd have to check that out to be sure.
So I've got a 30 episodes that we could go through. So give people an idea of what it's like. And just go back and watch this. I mean, it's so good. But maybe you could start us off by reading the first one.
going to wait for this to come up on the other screen so that I can see it a little bit better. Yeah. Number 12 looks just like you. It's a sharply dystopian tale. And let me see if I can read this off this real little screen. It's a sharply dystopian tale about the pressure to conform in looks, in mood, in beliefs. Marilyn is 18 years old, and on her next birthday, she can choose which pattern she wants. In other words, she can pick what model of generically beautiful adult body she'll have. The only problem is that Marilyn doesn't want to give up her individuality, but she might not have a choice. And it goes on to say that world building in number 12 is full of nice touches, like how all adults have their names sewn into their clothing to differentiate themselves from the lookalikes who also chose their particular pattern. In just half an hour, this feels like both well thought out science fiction and horrifying come of age story. Yeah, I mean, we have to remember that when these episodes were being written, the art of the short story was actually where all the Nobel Prizes were going. The short story was actually an art form being developed during the Beatnik period.
Yeah. And two, I mean, they're wanting little kids to conform to adults thinking, and they're not ready for that in our culture today. I mean, you can draw so many lines to these shows and what's going on today. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this episode alone, could you imagine? I mean, this is basically gender studies on top of identity culture as well. Yeah. This is the imagine if this episode were written today, there would be body positivity messages in there. There would be a boy wanting to get conformed into a girl's body and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it would be all those things. And they would be talking about dead naming, right?
Yeah.
And this was written when, right? Between 1959 and 1964.
Yeah, right.
This is what gets me so crazy about new television. They keep talking about this glass ceiling that they're supposedly shattering. And I'm like, guys, I just finished cleaning up the glass shattering from the last 50 years. What are you guys talking about?
Yeah. How many more glass ceilings do we have to break?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize we were a building inside of a building inside of a building.
They also act like that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. The destruction of the ceiling. What happens when it rains, guys?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Now, I don't remember this one.
Yeah, this one I remember a lot because I think it was one of my father's big earmarks because this episode, along with the film that inspired The Color of Money.
Okay.
I do believe that this episode either predates or is paying tribute to the original Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason film that basically does the same storyline, except without the mortality thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll read this. What happens once you're at the top and your game of the top of your game? That's one of the questions explored in A Game of Pool, where professional pool player Jesse Cardiff, Jack Klugman, takes on the legendary Fats Brown, Jonathan Winters, a legend who's been dead for years. If Jesse loses, he'll die too. But this isn't really an episode about having to play for your life. Instead, it's about the conversation between Jesse and Fats on this long night as they stay neck and neck with each other until the very end. It's about what makes you the best of what you do and what happens after your triumphant victory is over. Here, there's obviously a metaphysical, otherworldly twist, but anyone in a highly competitive field will recognize the unusual truth of a game of pool. This is This is a quieter Twilight Zone episode. Its philosophy and performance makes it shine.
Mm-hmm. And to answer the question that I brought up, the book, The Hustler, was written in 1959, and the movie came out in 1961. So we'd have to look up to see a game of pool when that was written. I'll take a quick look, but it's curious that they're all kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah.
I guess because maybe that was a common thing. It's season 3, 1961. So it's basically the same year. October 13th, nonetheless, too. So not that long ago in 1961.
That's
had its anniversary.
I guess they liked pool in that time period.
It was a huge pastime because grown men didn't really watch television, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you could read the next one.
Okay. Little Girl Lost. Curious to see what this one's all about. This one I don't really remember off the top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Little lost girl takes one of the biggest parental fears. What if your child was lost and you couldn't find them? Oh, I saw a clip from this just earlier today. That's okay. And uses it. I'm sorry, I'm going to switch over to my other screen because I can't read this small print. Uses it to explore uncertainties about the universe. It starts off simple. Tina's crying in the night, so the parents get up and check in on her. But even though they can hear her quite clearly, Tina is gone. Once Little Girl Lost has explained its metaphysical aspects enough to start exploring them, it works like a charm, summoning up haunting, mind-bending images and crafting a convincingly alien dimension out of a few production tricks. Add in a delightful dog, and you have a Twilight episode that looks homey but quickly hits all of the right surreal notes. When I saw the clip for this, I was immediately reminded of the movie Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Because in that one, the girl is lost through some sort of a dimensional gap, but you could still hear her voice through the television set. And in this episode, almost all of the earmarks of Poltergeist are in this thing, including the father going into the alternate dimension, grabbing the girl and the dog, and then getting dragged back through into reality, which is straight out of Poltergeist.
Yeah. Before it closes in on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah,
I mean, we were just talking about the cannibalism of the past. This is it to a nutshell.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody made a feature film out of this half-hour-long episode.
Yeah. Change a few things here and there, and there you go.
Yep.
Alrighty.
And these were conversation starters, most of these episodes.
Yeah, they were. And a lot of them had, good, thought-provoking episodes. And of course, there were some kind of silly ones, but they all had a warning message or a positive message.
Yeah, they were mostly cautionary tales. It's true. You know, be careful what you wish for. Right?
Yeah. And then here's this one. The Howling Man. Okay.
Wow.
A few years after the end of World War I, a weak and soaked through David Ellington, H.M. Wynette, seeks shelter in a hermitage.
A hermitage.
One
Yes.
where a hermitage, yeah. One where the monks are reluctant to offer him any hospitality. David finds out why when he stumbles across the source of the unearthly howling that wails through the castle. The monks are holding someone prisoner.
Yeah,
The
now I
man,
remember what episode
Robin
this
Hughes,
is.
claims that head monk brother Jerome, John Carradine, wow, I forgot he was in this, imprisoned him only out of jealousy and madness. Jerome, needless to say, offers a completely different story, saying the imprisoned man is the devil himself, and if he gets free again, the world will get much worse. The Howling Man is atmospheric and full of dread, and the potency of
Mm-hmm.
David's dilemma and the inadvertently of the ending make it a pack of wallop. Sorry, got kind of
Yeah.
tongue-tied there.
There's a cinematic trick at the end of this episode that is still to this day so convincing that people are continuously speculating as to how they actually achieved what they achieved, because there's a tracking shot of the prisoner walking down a hallway, and as he passes by each of the columns, he reveals more and more of his devil's costume. And it's in such the timing is so good that it doesn't look like it's interrupted at all, but it's obviously separate edits unless the man is quite literally transforming in front of the camera.
Right.
And they did that a lot in these shows where like they were using a lot of interesting techniques that you're just like, how did they do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And two, you take the monk as is he God in this episode? You know, warning you.
Yeah,
not
one
to,
could say that he's an allegory because
right. Yeah,
and
but he
back
doesn't
then,
listen.
nope. And no surprise, he's a World War I veteran, right? He doesn't believe that he probably doesn't believe that God exists because most of nihilistic discussion comes post World War II, post World War I. Where they just don't believe in God anymore. And others came away from World War I believing in God even more than they did when they went in. Like Tolkien is straight out of World War I, and he had the similar experience. So did Lawrence too, coming out of World War I.
Yeah. Yep. All right, you ready to move on?
Sure.
This one is really good.
Now, I am going to just wait for this to come up onto the other screen. This is called Nothing in the Dark from Season 3, Episode 16. So, Nothing in the Dark may be the most notable now for featuring a young Robert Redford, but this surprisingly touching Twilight Zone episode should also be remembered in its own right. It's a story of an elderly Wanda Dunn played by Gladys Cooper. Wanda has lived alone in her basement apartment for years, shut away from the world completely. She's terrified of encountering Mr. Death, believing that he presents himself to everyone eventually, killing them with a touch. She doesn't know what form he might take, so she never takes any chances. But when Harold Belden, Robert Redford, is shot outside her apartment and left lying in the snowy deserted street, Wanda can't bring herself to let him die. She brings him inside, amazed at how she can touch him without dying. He's evidently safe. But does that really mean she's wrong about Mr. Death? This is a gentle, tender episode, one that proves the show's ultimately warm heart. And I could see what they're doing there. It's the the Mr. Death comes in disguise, and he comes in there wounded. The poetry of writing an episode like this, where an isolated woman needed to be tricked by death in the form of a handsome young person in trouble, because Death knew she wasn't going to open up that door.
Yeah. And I think even in the episode, she's almost reluctant to open the door.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And he had to be super handsome. My God, a young Robert Redford back in those days. Goodness.
Yeah.
Who's probably like 19 or 20 years old,
Yeah. Yeah, but that good episode. I like that episode.
And they're playing on the traditional form that death would take, and that is, when you're ready for death, it's basically just a gentle hug and you're off. But if you're reluctant, it becomes a torturous nightmare.
Yeah.
Kind of like the way they describe death in the Harry Potter tales, where the three brothers, the three different forms of immortality in the form of the cape, the stone, and the wand.
Okay. I'm not.
Right?
I'm
the
not,
Deathly Hallows. Oh, you're not familiar with the Potter?
That, no.
Oh, okay. But in that, there's a story where Death offers three gifts, and the most powerful gift is the one that basically kills you as soon as you go to use it. And the second one allows you to rematerialize people from the depths of death. But the way they get resurrected is so insane that you wind up killing yourself. So it's a gentle form of killing you. And then the cloak of invisibility allows you to live your whole life as just a quiet person, and death greets you at your door and just says, all right, time to go. So it's like three forms of power, and the most invisible one is actually the most long living and most powerful in that little tale. So this is, again, I'm bringing these things up because I'm really interested in the origins of stories, the origins of the origins of the origins of stories.
Yeah. Cool. Mirror Image, Season 1, Episode 21. Okay. Morose are Mores? Not sure how to pronounce that. Mores are fundamentally eerie. Don't believe us. Watch the most jolting scene in Mirror Image. Vera Miles plays Millicent Barnes, a young woman stuck at a bus stop in the small hours of the morning. Something's wrong. Whatever she does, people keep telling her it's the second or third or fourth time she's done it. It's like reality itself is playing tricks on her. To try to clear her head, she goes into the restroom and splash some water on her face. And as the door swings behind her, she sees a doubled reflection. She's standing at the sink, but she's also sitting back on the bench. Mirror image alludes to parallel realities, but the idea of your double slowly intruding into your life and taking over doesn't need any scientific backing to be sinister. The uncanny, nightmarish quality of this episode makes it get right under your skin.
Mm. Yeah, I wonder. I would have to rewatch the episode to see what the internal psychology of the character is, because a lot of times a reflected character is who you either want to be or who you don't want to be. So to have them intrude slowly and eventually, oh, how interesting! Your baggage claim here is right behind her head, and meanwhile she looks like she's got some pretty big baggage of her own. Hysterical. Well, we're dealing with a reflection episode, so yeah, deeply psychological. So awesome.
Yeah, your doppelganger, I guess. Okay.
There was a lot of that in these. I mean, God, all of the different face episodes, and and we just went through the one where she's got to choose her identity, whether she likes it or not, and they're gonna basically like conform her physically and mentally. Good grief.
Yeah. Crazy. All right, you're up.
Oh my goodness, this one. Yeah, Bill Shatner has been in how many Twilight Zone episodes? I mean, for real.
At least 2 I can think of.
Yeah, I think there's actually a third one.
Maybe
I just can't recall it, if he was a main character or a background character. This is when he was just starting to get his feet wet in all of this. So, Nick of Time, Season 2, Episode 7, William Shatner's best remembered Twilight Zone role is in Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. But no one should miss his turn in Season 2, Season 2's Nick of Time. He plays Don Carter, a newlywed, taking his bride to New York for a honeymoon. Their car breaks down, forcing them to kill time in a little diner where the superstitious Don can't resist playing with the fortune telling machine on the table. The devil's head on it should have warned you, Don. Nice internal commentary. That's like 16 walls being broken within this commentary. After a few cryptic but convincingly accurate answers, he has trouble tearing himself away. But the cost of trying so frantically to scope out their future may be more than he can pay. This is a simple, deliciously tense premise, completely sold by Shatner and Patricia Breslin. Because I've watched the conclusion of this episode, the climax of it, and there is definitely a tone through this whole thing where it's almost like he's reluctant to pursue his future with this woman that he's newly married to. And so all of these superstitions are now becoming manifest in his own mind. After all, their car broke down. How a man in this time period, if your car broke down, it's like, dude, what the heck?
Yeah.
And you feel like slightly.
Get under that hood.
So I can see how this would have really played to the audience back then, especially with the whole fortune cookie superstition thing going on.
Right. And he doesn't want to leave the table until he, gets the answer of what should I do next.
Yeah, and she's just like, you're a man. I trust you to do what you think is right. And it's like, it's only then that she reminds him. It's like, dude, you're my husband. Let's go. Then he finally is like, that's right. I have to play Captain Kirk in a few years. Let's go.
Yeah. Good episode.
Just such solid little tropes that they develop.
Yeah. And it's Chester from Gunsmoke. Shadowplay, Season 2, Episode 26. One of the smartest and most viscerally, sorry, viscously unsettling episodes of The Twilight Zone. Shadowplay asks two questions most of us would rather not think about. What if, night after night, you dreamed of your own execution? Or what if you were only a character in someone else's dream? That's the situation the characters of Shadowplay find themselves in. Death row inmate Adam Grant, played by Dennis Weaver, struggles to get the people around him to understand that this is all his horrible recurring nightmare, and that his death will mean theirs. Wherever turns into a great Weaver turns into a great nervy performance. But what really makes this episode work is how it plays with the audience expectations. Grant can point out all the little ways the world around him is too convenient, too streamlined, and they're all part of how TV shows and movies normally work. Shadowplay is as thought-provoking as it is compelling, and it's definitely an episode you'll keep thinking about long after the credits have rolled.
Yeah, this is another one I only recently reminded myself of. When was the last time you even saw this episode all the way through?
It's been a while, but yeah,
Because
it's
he
a good
quite literally
episode.
describes a green door before you go into the execution chamber, and it's haunting because he's kind of living a Groundhog's Day, isn't he?
Yeah. Every time he dies, he wakes up back in his cell.
Which also links right in with the Green Mile as well. Is that same kind of supernatural? So it's like Groundhog's Day meets Green Mile all in 1.5 hour episode.
Yeah. And Weaver is a really good actor. He plays that nervous character very well. And this.
So before we carry on, just wanted to mention we got Dead Punk Gage and Miss Martin Muses in the chat, as well as Melvin Deeply and Wakazashi's Tea House have joined us as well.
Okay. Let's go through these real quick. Or some of these real quick. Good evening, Dead Punk. Thanks for coming on, man. And Ms. Martin Muses, hello. Hello, Wakazashi's Tea House. Wakazashi actually had a Twilight Zone movie review last night. That was pretty good. You should go check that out.
Yeah, I saw that he was doing that. He's been busy. Gray's a busy boy.
Hello, Melvin. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. I forget to look at the chat, especially.
I've always got my eyeballs. I am your co-pilot, sir.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Next episode. Oh, this one.
Oh, yes. Ooh, good grief. This is such a spooky episode, this thing. And while I'm waiting for this to show up on full screen here, I saw a makings of on this, and they actually hired a professional sculptor to make mannequins that looked just like the actresses.
Wow.
And a makeup artist to duplicate their makeup as well on the mannequin. So when you see some of the mannequins in here, they are
Wow.
visual replicas of the actresses, and it's startling to see on screen.
Well, that's
But,
crazy. That's cool. I didn't know they did that.
So
wonder
the
where those
After Hours
mannequins are
season
today.
1. What's that? Yeah, they would never go through
What was
that
that?
today. Today they would do some sort of
Oh
CGI
no.
deep fake or something.
Yeah.
So if you've seen After Hours, you remember it. This is the one with the mannequins. Marsha White, played by Anne Frances, Francis, goes to a department store to buy a present for her mother. A special express elevator takes her to a deserted 9th floor where an odd, coolly charismatic saleswoman, Elizabeth Allen, already knows her name. It probably wouldn't surprise you that Marcia soon learns that the store's employees insist that there is no 9th floor, and she can see for herself what's wrong with the saleswoman. As creepy and nail-biting as parts of the After Hours are, the story goes on to become surprisingly witfully human. The joy of this isn't all in the surprises, it's also in the discoveries. And it's true because once again, the cinematography, and I've mentioned this before in other streams, the camera is so important. And in this particular episode, the camera is with her. So the camera is like her advocate almost, right? The camera sees what she sees, but nobody else sees what she sees. So as much as she's questioning things, the audience is questioning things. So it's almost like a first person narrative through the camera, right? So so the discoveries become more and more intriguing because it's basically a fairly static story. It's mostly this exploration of discoveries, and the more you discover, the creepier and creepier it gets.
Yeah. And she almost looks like a mannequin, the actress.
Yeah, I'm sure that there was casting. The casting was all over that to make sure that they looked very generic, beautiful.
Yeah, plus the makeup too.
Yeah, I'm sure that they did a lot of flattening to make her features look more sculpted.
Yeah.
And probably very symmetrical design work where they were actually checking in a mirror, flipping her face around to see if a mirror reflection looked identical to the current reflection. Because as hard as a sculptor tries, it's nearly impossible to create asymmetry in a sculpture.
Yeah.
And yet the human face is wholly asymmetrical.
Yeah. I know that as an artist, it is difficult to get it to look asymmetrical. I mean, you as an artist, you get it close enough that it tricks the eye, you know.
Yeah. That's why I love rougher, sketchier stuff. When I see there's an artist called Patrick Nagel who was working during the 80s who did a style called super flat, which was basically like 4 or 5 different colors and very harsh black line work. And it was all done on canvas, but it looks like it was done with spline work in Photoshop or something, or Illustrator. But it predates all that technology. And the amount of structure that he was able to physically show on the canvas without ever actually displaying it, because it's like he took it from a photograph and your brain is making up 90% of what you think you see. Yeah, cool. If you ever get a chance, just write it down. Patrick Nagel, you'd be fascinated by his work as an artist. By the way, I've seen some of your artwork, some of your speed draws recently. You've got a good hand, and you're using reference material on the fly. You. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you. All right, let's next episode here. this this is one of my favorites. Next stop, Willoughby or A Stop at Willoughby, season 1, episode 30. A Stop at Willoughby looks at a man who's fundamentally ill-suited for the world he's in. Gart Williams, James Daly, is an advertising executive, but he's just not meant for a high-powered life governed by what his boss calls the need to push, push, push. And things aren't any better at home, where his icy wife, Patricia Dunho, derides him for his sentimental and sentimentality and sensitivity. But when he dozes off on the train, Gart keeps having dreams of stopping in an idyllic little town called Willoughby. It's a quaint and sunny place somewhere in the past, and the rhythm of life seems more relaxed there. Perfect for Gart. But what would it mean to escape there? The result is both poignant and
Poignant.
interesting. And interestingly, what'd you say?
Poignant and interestingly ambiguous.
Sorry.
See, I don't remember how this one finishes up. So he winds up in this little town. How does that actually wind up concluding?
Well, he's on the train. He in the last of it, he oversleeps or something and wakes up and goes running for the exit for Willoughby out of the moving train in a snowstorm.
Oh, so he does decide to just go back and go.
Right. But he winds up falling off the train and dying.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Sorry for spoilers. But
No, yeah, spoilers.
Yeah.
1959 to 1964.
No. Yeah. If you haven't seen this yet. Yeah, and they stop the train, and when they find his body, he's got a big smile on his face.
Right, because he mentally escaped.
So he mentally escaped? Yes. Whew, that's kind of sad. And
there's a lot of these that are dark endings.
Zone episodes. Yeah, they don't have very happy endings.
Yeah, which is why we were referring to them as cautionary tales.
With William Shatner.
Mm-hmm.
The one with William Shatner. He gets up and leaves, but is he in the Twilight Zone? He leaves in the Twilight Zone.
Right.
Alrighty.
I've got to revisit these.
Yeah, me too.
Alrighty. Melvin says that The Howling Man is one of his favorites. Why can't people write like that anymore? Well, for one, it has to deal with Christian mythology, so that's a big problem. And then, of course, there is the other thing of nobody writes for the stage anymore. And welcome to the chat, Daniel. How you doing, brother? All righty. Let's get into this one. All right. And when the sky was open, season 1, episode 11. So this is one of the early big hitters, I guess. And let me have that. There we go. Okay. Can you scroll that up just a bit more?
Yeah.
So when the sky was opened has one of the most fundamentally disconcerting premises in the whole Twilight Zone. Well, that's a pretty bold statement right there on the face of it. After an experimental flight, one where the plane dropped off the radar for 24 hours. The pilots return as celebrated heroes, or do they? Colonel Forbes, Rod Taylor, insists that there was a third man on the plane, Colonel Harrington, played by Charles Aidman. And now there's no proof he ever existed at all. Really, reality has been overwritten to remove Colonel Stephen Harrington completely. Only Forbes knows the difference. This episode's eerie plot is well served by the raw emotion we get from Forbes, who's genuinely distraught over all the confusion and the loss of his friend. And as the story speeds to its inevitable conclusion, we can't help getting goosebumps. Yeah, again, this is like the isolation of a psychological event in a lot of these episodes, where it's because we can't read minds. You know, is he crazy?
Yeah.
Was there ever a guy? And this is
And
talk about
the
mandala effect
touch.
with a vengeance.
Yeah. And the touch of the newspaper, where every time he sees the newspaper, his friend disappears. I think it even shows it, doesn't it? Like
I
it
don't
shows
remember.
the picture of in the newspaper and just disappears. Very thought-provoking.
Interesting. That's I wonder if that's where Steven Spielberg got his iconic imagery for Back to the Future.
Yeah.
That Marty would be disappearing from a temporal anomaly.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Next one. The
Indeed.
Hitchhiker. See, I mean, this one too, there are so many ghost stories with this premise that you pick up a hitchhiker and they like disappear sitting right next to you. The Hitchhiker.
Right, or they turn out to be some
episode,
supernatural force. Go ahead.
Yeah. The Hitchhiker, season 1, episode 16. As eerie and chilling as a good campfire tale, The Hitchhiker catches a ride with Nan Adams, played by Inger Stevens, a young woman on a cross-country drive. She passes a hitchhiker, Leonard Strong, who's a little drab and mousy, with a plain and placid face, so he should seem benign. Except everywhere she goes, no matter what route she takes, he's already there, always with his thumb out, always waiting for her. Soon she starts to check under the crack under the pressure. The Hitchhiker is simple in a way that makes it universal. On a long and lonely drive, it's hard not to think about it, and even harder not to shiver.
Daniel's like, I wish she would pick me up. Yowza. Mousy indeed. And look how contemporary she looks. I will remind you, kids, 1959 to 1964. She looks like some chick I just bumped into at Starbucks.
Yeah. Funny how those styles come back up.
Even the hat. I mean, God, I think they sell a hat like that over at the local boutique.
Yeah.
It is sometimes almost as if culture stopped. Go ahead.
Yeah. It reminds me of late traveling, we would always have Art Bell on when it was.
Hmm.
Did you ever listen to Art Bell?
Yes, indeed. It's like a continuous campfire story, the whole show.
Yeah. That might even deserve a live stream.
Yeah,
All
a
right, you're up
retrospective
next.
on Art Bell. Okie
Yeah.
doke. And I recognize this actor. God, how many things has he been in? So, The Lonely,
You name
Season 1, Episode 7. The Lonely looks at a kind of futuristic solitary confinement. James Corey, Jack Warden, is a convicted criminal sentenced to 50 years of isolation on an uninhabited asteroid, which I totally love. Like they would spend money to do this.
it. Yeah,
Must have
right.
plenty of money to go housing people on an asteroid, I guess. He only finds solace in the occasional supply visits when the sympathetic Allenby, John Derner, smuggles him additional gifts. One of those gifts is Alicia, played by Jean Marsh, a robot designed to look and act like a human woman. How real is she? Will loving her help Corey or make him lose what's left of his sanity? And what happens on Allenby's next visit when he offers Corey's shocking choice? The Lonely is made especially great by its ending, which has no real twist, just the characters having to live with the complex muddle of everything that's happened. They don't know how to feel about it, and neither do we. Right? Because in the end, he stays, doesn't he?
No, he leaves.
Oh, and
He's
he leaves her there?
he he wants to take her with him, but they don't. They have a load capacity. They can only take him, and he's trying to get him to take her too. And finally, his friend pulls his gun out and shoots the robot, and the robot malfunctions, and so he realizes that was not a real person. That was, and they leave.
It's bizarro. I guess a bullet was the best way to do that, huh? No power switch on off, right?
No
Leave them for
laser
the next.
blaster.
No, I guess not. Yeah, everything with bullets, just like Halo.
Yeah. Yeah, but definitely thought provoking when we have all this stuff about AI and robots that look like people.
Yeah, how about even just virtuosity? Because how many YouTube channels have an artificial face that's basically talking? I don't know what half the YouTubers actually look like because I've only seen their avatar form.
Right.
And now we're doing Janet from Another Planet does real-time makeup effects with her camera work. So, what is artificiality? Would we even know if we were being artificially spoken to? What is artificiality? And in the end, if it's providing interesting conversation, who cares if it's artificiality? I mean, that all of those things are discovered in this episode.
Yeah. Unless it develops Skynet, then you have a problem. You still there?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I was just scoping out some of the chat. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Interesting. Another interesting, thought-provoking episode.
It's kind of startling how many of them, like I said, you were asking me what was my favorite, and I couldn't nail it down to the top 10. This list has got 30 in it, and that's not even all the episodes. There's 3 seasons for crying out loud.
Yeah, there's, let me see here. There's how many episodes? 156 episodes.
Yeah. And just CBS was just killing it, knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, and 2 movies from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. They were just spitting movies out, one right after another. I mean, it's crazy how many they got knocked out. Okay.
We talk about the 80s in Hollywood cinema, but the 60s in Hollywood television, in American television was just like, seriously, guys? Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, The Munsters, Mission Impossible, Men from U.N.C.L.E., the I Spy. I mean, you just look at the list of things that came out of 60s television. It's like, for real? Holy crap, dudes.
Yeah. Okay. Walking Distance, Season 1, Episode 5. Okay. Nostalgia is understandable, but does it really lead you anywhere good? Walking Distance explores that question in a
Nuanced
and unsentimental way. Stressed ad agency VP Martin Sloan, Gig Young, takes a country drive and winds up stopping at a service station close to his old hometown, which he hasn't visited in years. Impulsively, he strolls on in and finds himself walking into his own childhood. It's a world of ice cream, sodas, and carousels, and bystanders. Bad. What does that say? Bad stands.
bystanders.
Bandstands.
Bandstands.
There we go. And all Martin wants to do is sink into it, but he frightens his childhood self and confuses and alarms his parents, leading him to find out that it's not that simple. Walking Distance will resonate with anyone who's ever wearily longed to go back to a simpler time in their life. Its firm but compassionately expressed stance on the danger of too much nostalgia gives this episode considerable staying power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forget what happens at the end of this one.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but it does remind me a little bit of the Willoughby episode as well.
Yeah.
Where it's the person is tinkering with a nostalgic point or a refuge from the complications of modern life.
Yeah. And it's funny. This is the 60s, early 60s. And now we're wanting to go back. We're wondering what it would have been like to live in the 60s or 50s. A simpler time, or at least I do.
Yeah, how hysterical is that, right? I mean,
yeah,
we would want to go back to the 60s, and meanwhile, he wanted to go back to the 40s.
Right.
And it's funny, there's a little bit of a time capsule in that an advertising exec back then was a heavy hitter. That was a powerful business person, somebody who was an ad guy, because they were king right then at that point in time. That's what the TV show Mad Men was all about. It was about that time period of advertising during the 60s. Yeah. I didn't know that about Lazenby. I didn't realize that he ever worked ever again.
All right, you're up.
All right, little cough break, and I'm back on camera. All right. The Midnight Sun, this episode, holy cannoli. All right. In the midnight sun, a change in Earth's orbit means that there's no more night. The weather is boiling hot, and humanity's future can be measured in months at the most. New York is slowly emptying out, but at least two people are left. Painter Norma, Louise Nettleton, and her landlady, Mrs. Brown, played by Betty Garb, or Garb, or Garb. They do their best to support each other, sharing their few resources and keeping each other company. Meanwhile, every day it gets hotter. Midnight Sun shows us an apocalypse where nothing can be done. There's no flight to save the world. Death is inevitable. It's coming quickly. In the face of that, the way Norma and Mrs. Bronson, I probably didn't say her name correctly the first time, Mrs. Bronson, continued showing each other compassion seems more meaningful than ever. Despite this episode's bleakness, its softer view of humanity gives it a kind of beauty, and it's so true. And that complexity places it squarely on the top tier of Twilight Zone episodes. It's true because what's ironic about this is the spoiler alert ending, that none of this is actually happening.
Yeah.
Which is bizarro. It's a total
it's
twist ending on the whole thing.
Yeah, it's actually the exact opposite of what's happening.
Yep, and she has a fever, right? She's actually got some sort of a flu, which is ironic on itself.
Yeah, but good. Go ahead.
Yeah, the sequence where her painting that she made is actually melting.
Yeah.
In the climactic sequence, and then the thermometer just explodes.
But then the window melts. The glass window melts.
It's just the inevitable, because you remember, these are the same people that are leaping underneath their desks during fire drills, during atomic bomb drills. So the idea of the world melting was actually a relevant topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be so helpless, you're at the whim of communists,
Mm-hmm.
And they could just I mean, you think of that time, there were so many false mess ups with the technology they had that we thought we were actually getting fired upon when nothing had happened.
Yeah, just because of a glitch in the system.
Yeah, and
not to
close.
Mention that just a few years later, by the time, this is season 3, episode 10, so right around this time, the Cuban Missile Crisis was actually happening.
Yeah.
Right? Third season, that's got to be around 1962 at least.
Yeah. Man.
So, we talk about some of the stuff going on with us today, and we've got live cameras on the scene. These people barely had live radio on the scene.
Yeah.
So talk about the inevitable panic. These are still people that believe in ghosts and go to church every Sunday to bless their merry souls. These were the people watching these shows when they first came out were probably frightened to death by them.
Yeah. Can you imagine the stress of being within range of Cuba? I mean,
everybody in Florida, anybody on the Gulf of Mexico, New Orleans, Louisiana, Texas, they must have been frightened out of their skins, man. They just must have been scared.
And plus, they were all making fallout shelters too.
Yeah, try making a fallout shelter in Florida. You keep digging, and all you get is water.
Water, yeah. Man, crazy times. May you live in interesting times.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. The Silence, season 2, episode 25. You remember this one?
This one, not just yet, but
Okay. Unlike most Twilight Zone episodes, The Silence doesn't have any supernatural or science fictional elements. What it has instead is a diabolical plot, far-fetched, far-fetched, but if you buy in completely, if you buy in, completely engrossing. Colonel Archie Taylor, Fanchette, Fanchette Tone,
Yeah, that's close enough for me.
yeah, is so irritated with the constant chatter of a young man in his club that he suggests an dish wager. If Jeremy Tinson, Liam Sullivan, can stay silent for 1 year in a glass cell in the club's basement, just go with it. Then Colonel Tyler will give him 500,000 money that Tinson desperately needs due to his beloved wife's interpret intemperate spending.
Mm.
But as Tennyson proves more resilient in his silence than Tyler ever expected, a troubling possibility emerges. Taylor may not have the money to cover his bet. Part psychological thriller and part tragedy, The Silence breaks the unusual Twilight Zone mold to excellent results.
Right. Isn't it in the end the guy actually like cut his vocal cords or something like that?
Right,
He made it
right,
impossible for him to speak, or he ate his tongue or
right,
something?
right. He had his vocal cords cut.
Yep.
So, and he didn't get the money because the guy didn't have that much money.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Harsh. Yeah, I had heard Lazenby's got a
episode,
fascinating background to him. I'm just mentioning the chat, but yeah, you know, and it's amazing that the Twilight Zone felt that they were strong enough and ballsy enough to be able to pull off an episode like this, where there is no supernatural plot. This is just humans being humans,
Yeah,
right?
and it
A bit of a
shows
bizarre.
it shows that humans don't need that. Humans can do it all on their own as well.
Yep. Yep. No devil needed. No time travel. No space vehicles. No robots. We'll do it to each other in a heartbeat just to keep somebody quiet, hysterical.
Yeah,
That's some dark
and
humor in
it's
that.
almost like the Around the World in 80 Days. Rich men sitting around making bets with each other.
Right. You know, that was probably a thing. Imagine what the pastimes would have been.
Yeah,
I read a lot of Victorian literature, and that gentlemen's bets were like almost, you know, they were almost hanging affairs. If you didn't come through on that bet, you could be put to
yeah, you could
gunfire.
wind up in a duel.
Yep. Good grief.
All right, you're next.
Yeah, and this one, I saw the conclusion of it, but actually I don't recall this episode. It's so strange. Burgess Meredith, this is at least his second appearance on the show. So let's get into it. The Obsolete Man, season 2, episode 29, is a dystopian nightmare that's also pure narrative satisfaction. The totalitarian state has declared librarian Romney Wordsworth, played by Burgess Meredith, to be obsolete, a cog not fit for the machine. His religious faith and his love of books mark him as an unwanted anachronism. In a society that has no use for freedom of thought. In 48 hours, Wordsworth's faces execution, but he gets to choose exactly when and how he will die, and how he has an unusual request. and he has an unusual request. He doesn't. We don't want to spoil anything about this episode, which has particularly strong storytelling. We'll just recommend it as one of the best episodes of the Twilight Zone, making it anything but obsolete. How crazy is the narrative of this particular episode?
Right.
Here he
In our
is, a privileged white male who wants nothing more than to love his God and love his books. And he's marked by this society as unnecessary equipment in a world that no longer abides freedom of thought.
and canceled, and they cancel him.
They basically cancel him. And the guy speaking
Yeah.
on the microphone accusing him is almost like a Hitler-like preacher.
Yeah.
Almost like he's showing for a camera, too.
Yeah. I mean, and he is. All of this is broadcast.
That's right. It's all televised.
Including execution. It's all broadcast.
Yep. The only thing that could update this episode would be for all of this to be appearing on YouTube or Twitter.
Yeah.
And of course, they'd all have better microphones.
Yes, of course. But yeah, the end part too.
I forget, what was his special request?
He wanted the guy that was doing doing the talking, at his trial, to be present.
Oh.
And yeah, and his way of execution is a bomb in his room, in his house. He's got a bomb set to go off.
Nice.
And it's all, it's all broadcast. So the guy, he makes the guy admit something that he shouldn't have admitted, and then that guy gets canceled or gets made obsolete.
And this is not too long after the book 1984 was written.
Yeah.
It's about 15 years after or so. 1984 was written in 1948, right? Because the author has admitted that he just flipped the two digits around because he was actually talking about 1948 Russia.
Wow.
But this is a very similar premise as 1984. A man trying to speak in a society that doesn't respect speech.
Yep. Yep. Kind of sad.
Melvin deeply.
And this is, too late, for this society. It's so controlled, and it's pretty much too late to do anything about it.
Yeah. It's interesting that it's not even a discussion about destroying that society. It's about this one man trying to get his last dig in.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the second time we see Burgess Meredith in this series, he's also interested in books.
Yeah, that is interesting. Didn't he even do a voice on one of the Winnie the Pooh
Oh my
series?
goodness, I don't know.
I almost think I'll have to look that up.
Yep, I know all about it, Pilgrim LJC. Yes, the book 1984 has huge similarities to today. Yeah, even worse, because that at least was under some sort of control in 1984. I don't know what's going on today.
Alrighty.
Of course, this episode has to be number 13.
Yeah, right. All right. Is it your turn? I think.
I just read the last one, I believe.
Okay. Okay. Living Doll, Season 5, Episode 6. In Living Doll, a new toy sends an already dysfunctional family straight into the Twilight Zone. Arch? Is that Arch? Telly Savalas takes out his personal frustration by launching into tirades and withholding love from his stepdaughter, Christy. But in Christy's new doll, Talkie Tina, Arch has met his match. She looks like an ordinary toy, but when she's alone with Arch, she says things like, "My name is Talkie Tina, and I don't think I like you." We're not used to rooting for terrifying talking dolls, but while Living Doll plays off horror tropes, Talkie Tina is closer to a protector or an avenger than she is a menace. Although, as the end suggests, it may be best to stay on her good side. The real monster in Living Doll is emotional abuse, and it's explored with a satisfying combination of scares and sensitivity and a wish fulfillment.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an ironic twist that he's basically the bad guy in this.
Yeah.
He's abusive to the wife, he's abusive to the kid, and the doll is basically calling him out on it.
Yeah. And it's weird because when you think about this show, you think about the creepy doll, but the doll's not the bad one in the show, in the episode. And it being played by Tony Savalas, or Telly Savalas, is great.
Yeah, because he's well known for his crazier characters. I think The Dirty Dozen is the first time he plays a real crazy. Well, maybe not. He's probably played crazies before. It wasn't until like the late 70s or mid 70s that he started playing Kojak, and that changed his whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in The Dirty Dozen, right?
Yeah. They were all criminals. It was the first version of Suicide Squad, just done World War II style.
Kelly's Heroes too, wasn't he? Wasn't he in that? I think he was in that. I don't know.
You know what? To be honest, he may actually been in. You know what? I got to look it up now because now I'm questioning my own memory as usual. Dirty Dozen. Cast and Telly Savalas is in that. Ironically, he's called Archer in that one, much like you were saying in this one. But and what was it? Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah,
I think he's in that one too. But I don't think he's playing as crazy. Yeah, Sergeant Big Joe. I don't think he's a crazy guy in that one. But in the other one, he was literally like someone you wouldn't want hanging out with your family. He was kind of psychotic.
Yeah.
In Dirty Dozen. In this one, he's just a little wacky.
Yeah.
But he's an intimidating man nonetheless. So I could see why he would play a character like this. Plus, all of these actors that we're talking about here had all done stints on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think any person in Hollywood today that's popular has been a stage actor.
Not since college.
I think they're mostly there for their looks.
Yeah, they're like supermodels with lines.
Right.
I'm sure Chris Hemsworth would laugh his ass off just hearing us say that.
Yeah. Okay. Episode 12. You're up.
Okay. I'm just gonna
Oh,
wait for this to.
another one that shows the times of the Cold War.
Yep. Yeah, it quite literally gets into it. So, The Shelter, season 3, episode 3. Welcome to the world's most disastrous birthday party. The celebration is for Dr. Bill Stockton, played by Larry Gates, a well-loved family physician whose carefully constructed bomb shelter gets some gentle razzing from his neighbors until the radio says there may be on the brink of nuclear war. The cake is forgotten as everyone scatters in panic, but they all come back to the Stocktons. Theirs is the only fallout shelter around, and the neighbors will rip each other to pieces to make sure they're the ones who get inside. Like the monsters are due on Maple Street, which is an episode we have not yet gotten to, The Shelter reveals how ugly people can get when things go wrong. The convivial birthday. I have no idea what that word even is. The
Me
birthday
neither.
party is only minutes away from becoming a mob. This dark little lesson is in the effect of panic is elegantly, hauntingly effective.
Yes.
Convivial? The convivial birthday party? Is that convivial?
I think that's a typo there. Yeah.
Who knows?
This episode too, they get to the point of they've ripped the door open and they're about to, do whatever they want to these people. And then the all clear siren sounds.
Yeah. And this is probably an inspiration point for Blast from the Past as well.
Yeah.
How many lawsuits did this guy win 5 minutes after this episode ended, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
the entire neighborhood basically rips apart his bomb shelter. He's never talking to any of those people ever again.
Yeah. If not moving, and he has to build his shelter all over again.
Right?
And really,
yes,
if this just happened amongst these few people, what else has gone on in the rest of the country?
Right? Well, isn't that what War of the Worlds is basically talking about too?
Yeah. What is it? The veil of what is it? Of society is thin, Once something breaks down, everybody starts looking out for number one and freaking out. All right. Did you have anything else to say about this one?
I don't really remember this, but all these bomb shelter stories. As we cut through this, if you were to watch the entire Twilight Zone show, I would guarantee that there are a few of them that just look like retooled scripts, where it's almost like they made duplicates of their own episodes.
Yeah. Two, there's even ones that are set after a nuclear war.
Right. Yeah, the one we mentioned about with Burgess Meredith. That's right after an apocalypse, isn't it?
I think so. All righty. Now, I don't recall this one.
Yeah.
An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.
Oh, season 5. Good
Season
grief.
5, episode 22. So this is toward the end of it. An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge both is and isn't a Twilight Zone episode. As Rod Sterling, as Rod, they misspelled Sterling. As Rod Sterling explains in his introduction, the episode is actually an award-winning French film that he wanted to present as part of the series, and it's easy to see why his historical piece spoke to him. Peyton Farquhar awaits execution at the hands of the Union Army. The process of getting the noose around his neck and sitting up the eerily whimsical seesaw drop seems to go on forever. And then Farquhar is hanged, and the rope snaps, sending him plunging into the river. Even with his escape uncertain and the army still pursuing him, he can't help notice the luxury
Leisurely, perhaps?
leisurely, maybe, in the natural world around him. For the first time, he really feels all the pleasures of being alive. But as fast as he runs, he can't escape the Twilight Zone. Lean, effective, and beautifully shot, this one may not have started the Twilight Zone writers' rooms, may not have started in the Twilight Zone writers' room, but it certainly belongs on the show. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this episode. I would imagine that a lot of season 5 was just not kind of slipped under the radar.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to have to go back and watch some of these.
You can see it's a better camera, too. Just the imagery of this one shot looks a lot cleaner than some of the other stuff.
Yeah, it does. All righty, you ready? Ready to move on?
Sure. The Invaders. Right. Good grief. Uh-oh. Let's see what this one's all about. And The Invaders, Season 2, Episode 15. Agnes Moorehead stars in The Invaders, where UFOs manned with tiny invaders land, oh, I know what this one is, on her rustic, out-of-the-way farmhouse. Her performance is great, wordless but full of expressive body language, grunts and exertions, and moans of terror. It puts you right in her shoes as she struggles to fight off these small alien intruders. The squat little figures could be comical, but the episode makes them convincingly terrifying. It helps that the house has no electricity, so the invaders have plenty of shadows to hide in. Moorhead's wobbly candlelight almost becomes a character in its own right. This tense siege thriller is riveting as any horror movie, and it finishes off with a classic Twilight Zone twist. Is this the one where the vehicle turns out to be the invaders turn out to be U.S. Air Force personnel?
It's a flying saucer with the American flag on it.
Yeah, this one it's like, talk about turning the whole script on its head. It's insane the way they do that.
And then you think of these little people from Earth, they're your size, coming upon this planet that has giants.
Yep.
And how terrified they would be. Especially when they come at you with a giant axe.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the closing scene to this not too long ago, and it's like she's smashing the ship, and the guys are calling Earth saying, "Don't send any more ships. This is a terrible place. There are giants everywhere." And it's like smashing and smashing until the voice just stops, and you're like, "Oh my God." Meanwhile,
Yeah.
there was a TV series called Land of the Giants that happened in the late 60s,
Yeah.
obviously directly inspired by this.
Yeah.
And Gulliver's Travels, of
Welcome, bloody
course.
blah.
Hello, sir. How are you? This happy chat we got going on here.
Yeah. Rod Serling. Did I pronounce his name wrong?
Who? Blair to Blair?
No, I did. I did reading it. I don't know why I thought there was a T in it for some reason.
Oh, Rod Sterling. And it
I
gets
don't know what I
past
was
most
thinking.
people that they don't even remember that the original Planet of the Apes film was written by Rod Sterling based on the original French novel.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people like, really? Oh, I didn't realize that. It's like, how could you not? It's so obviously his work.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how quickly we lost him. He's like, he really didn't get a full term, in my opinion.
Yeah. I wanted to read something of the trivia. I saw trivia on it. If it will load back to it. Come on.
Do 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 the internet, the internet.
Yeah, at some point, Rod Serling gave out a call for story ideas, and I forget how many of he got tons of them. Only read about 500 of them. Here we go. Where was it?
Yeah, I mean, a show this big must have volumes of trivia. Just the production trivia alone is probably gigantic.
Yeah. It says Rod Serling invited viewers to submit a script. He was flooded with over 14,000 scripts, and he actually got around to reading 500 of them. However, only 2 were any good, and he couldn't use them because they didn't fit the format of the show.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on top of that, he had current science fiction writers donating plot lines. I mean, one of the
Right.
episodes of Outer Limits, I think it is iRobot.
Yeah.
With Leonard Nimoy, no less, playing a detective talking into a robot.
Yeah.
Little did he know what his future would bode.
Yeah.
Where he would be considered a robot by Bones.
Yeah. Or a hobgoblin, one or the other. Now this is a good one. 5 characters in search of an exit.
Yeah,
Season 3, episode 14. What were you gonna say?
Now, I after you're finished with it, I've got some interesting comments to make about this one. Good grief.
Okay. An army major wakes up to find himself imprisoned in a round, featureless room. His companions, a clown, a ballet dancer, a hobo, and a bagpipe, have all been there much longer, and they've wearily accepted their confinement and all the strangeness that comes with it. None of them know their names, or remember their pasts. None of them need to eat, drink, or sleep. Every once in a while, an enormous bell rings outside their prison. What is going on? Who are they? What are they doing there? The major, William Wyndham, can't accept that. They just don't know. He can't accept that they just don't know. He hits on an idea that may let them see over the room's wall. 5 characters in search of an exit, puts an
Existential.
existential spin on an old flight of fancy, making it one of the signature Twilight Zone episodes.
Yeah. Like I said, I went through a brief period since you opened me up to this possibility of doing this show, and I've just been reviewing episode after episode. And spoiler alert, they're all toys in a box. Right? Like that's basically the big secret, is that they're all some child's playthings.
Yeah, toys in a box.
And try and convince me that this is not the inspiration for Toy Story.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, inside the closed box, they're having conversations with each other. They're perfectly animate. They're aware of themselves. The ballerina has all of her ballet skills, right?
Yeah.
The general even has a strategic mind. So he's always been programmed to escape any prison he's put in. So it's quite literally like Buzz Lightyear joining the rest of the crew for the first time.
Yeah. Right. Makes you wonder what Nerdrotic's toy collection does when he leaves the room.
Could you imagine? In a Toy Story universe, that would be some party going on in his studio, I swear.
Yes, it would.
You better zip tie those guys to the wall.
Yeah. I think he does, kind of. Some of them.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But yeah, he lived in an earthquake state.
Show. What was the show with the Toy Soldiers? Remember that? Did you ever see that movie?
Yes, I did.
Yes,
I did. That was a classic 80s.
Yes. Early 90s, wasn't it?
Wait a second. Yes, you're right. It was early 90s. They were just starting to get their hands wrapped around some major animatronic technologies, and they just went for it.
Yeah.
They just went for it. And that was right around the time that G.I. Joe was reemerging as a 3-inch action figure as well.
Yeah. That's funny. And they put, the funny thing about that movie is that this guy that works for the military takes over this toy company and just randomly gives 2 of those employees all access to top secret stuff. And I put the most advanced computer chip in these toys.
Well, that's probably because, in a Tony Stark universe, that would be called accidental research and development.
Right.
Where he allows these guys to tinker with this because he can't get the Pentagon on board with the technology. So if he lets it out in toy form and it does its job, granted, turns it into a horror movie, but if it does its job, he can basically say, see, gentlemen, just like, whatchamacallit, X-Men Days of Future Past, where the Sentinels are made viable because of a terrible accident going on with the X-Men.
Right.
So it's forced technological development through an accident. It's a happy accident.
Yeah.
Hey, lovely Sherry.
Hello there. Glad you could come on. Okay.
All right.
You're up with the next one here. Let me pull it down. Pull it up.
Number 8.
Oh, this one.
Boy. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. These episodes with these face sculptures, I think that the makeup artist may have been responsible for some of the most horrifying face sculpts.
Yes.
Okay, The Mask, Season 5, Episode 25. I know this episode so well, so I have seen some of Season 5. I just don't realize it. The Mask is a classic morality fable. Its simplicity is part of its effectiveness. Robert Keith plays Jason Foster, an elderly, cantankerous man who knows he has only a few hours to live. His family has gathered around him, but they're not there to comfort him. They're there to watch the clock counting down the minutes until they can get their hands on his money. Jason proposes a Mardi Gras celebration of their own, one that comes with hideous masks that express what's already lurking inside of his family: greed, vanity, cowardice, and cruelty. For a few short hours, these faces will tell who they really are, and once the clock strikes midnight, they can leave the masks behind and walk away with a fortune. Or can they? With strong acting and some very creepy props, The Mask shows how well Twilight Zone can do pure horror, and it jumps up the list of our top episodes. It's true. If you think about what this episode does, not only in a half an hour, but basically in a single room
Yeah.
with 75% of the cast under masks the whole time. No, wait, 100% of the cast, because he's wearing a death mask, isn't he?
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
everybody's got full masks on, and yet they're all acting. They're all emoting. There's no doubt what's going on in their heads.
Yeah. And you as the minutes tick by as you watch this episode, and it gets to take the masks off, you're actually, we get to see their faces again, because had to look at these ugly masks the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But then they remove the masks, and their faces have morphed into the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good build up to them removing the masks, thinking you're going to see their faces again, to find out that it's twisted their faces around. Great.
And Melvin Deeply says there's a movie called The Box with Cameron Diaz and James Marsden. That was a remake of a Twilight Zone episode. Are you familiar with that film?
No, I'm not.
Melvin, can you please tell us if you know what episode that might have been? That would be an interesting crossover. Chat, you guys are doing awesome. Thank you, chat.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Alrighty.
Number 7
Number
is
7.
yours. I can't believe we're just cooking through this list. It's great.
Ooh.
Hour and
Will the
45
real
minutes on the
Martian-
clock.
Will the real Martian please stand up?
This episode.
Season 2, episode 28. Alrighty. Will the real Martian please stand up? Is set almost entirely in a little roadside diner where bus passengers are a bite to eat and a cup of coffee before they get back on the road. But there's a wrench thrown into the works. A UFO seems to crash land in a nearby pond, and there are footsteps in the snow. Footsteps that go straight from the pond to the diner. And while there are only 6 passengers on the bus, there are 7 in the restaurant. They all claim they belong, but did one of them catch a different kind of ride? Will the real Martian please stand up is a playful episode that turns out to have an unexpected bit to it.
Yeah, the conclusion of this one is absolutely fantastic. The whole bit with him having 3 arms.
Yeah. And then the
so well executed.
Yeah. And two, it's like a famous clip they always show of Twilight Zone is the guy that runs the diner takes his hat off and he has a third eye. And it's so great. The guy with the 3 arms is like smugly sitting there saying, "We're going to take over your planet." And then the diner owner takes his hat off, and we've been here for a lot longer than you have.
You feel comfortable showing a reveal clip?
Yeah.
I'm putting it live in the chat. That's
All right.
basically just under 3 minute short with the whole bit with him lighting a cigarette with his 3 arms and the third eye reveal. Talk about smugness on top of smugness.
Yeah.
The two of them are actually ribbing each other. Hysterical. And if I'm not mistaken, this actor plays the Martian in My Favorite Martian.
Really? Interesting.
If I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken on that one. And I haven't forgot about this episode, What's in the Box. I can't believe there's a Twilight Zone episode that predates the meme of what's in the box? What's in the box?
Give me a second. My browser is clocking. There we go.
Hey, take your time, man. You're the host of the show, dude. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I love the scenes with the I guess they're highway patrol guys following these footprints. Okay. Well. Okay, let me pull that up. Uh-oh. I just closed out everything. Oh, well, I'll pull it back up.
Yeah, we were on episode 7. Oh, I remember this episode. Okay.
Interesting. It's not letting me. Well, it's not letting me pull anything else up. That's weird.
Well, we don't have to show it.
Yeah. Hang on a second. Let me try it again.
So I'm looking into this other episode called What's in the Box, and it's a person needs to have their TV set repaired, but after it's repaired by a very unique TV repairman, it does Twilight Zone-y, weird, funky stuff.
Interesting. Well, I can't get it to come back up. I accidentally closed out the Twilight Zone
our list?
we were. Yeah. And it won't open back up. Well
then. That's disconcerting. Luckily, we were through almost 80% of the list.
Can you share your screen?
I cannot share my screen. I don't think I can anyway.
Well, I may have to read the last of them. That is weird.
Yeah, no, I'm doing this all through my phone, so that's a big no-go.
Well. Oh, well. I'm going to have to read the rest, I guess. That is so weird.
And it's all my fault sending you a clip.
No, it's not your fault.
Did you want to bounce out and come back in again? Perhaps that'll reset it?
Yeah. It won't mess up anything, huh?
You should be able to pop out and go back and come back in again. I mean, I've seen people do it before.
There it is. There it is. It finally popped up for me.
Ta-da! YouTube confusion. All right, kids, I'll remember to never do that again.
Ah, that's the wrong one. Wrong screen there.
Welcome to the infinite mirror of Jacob Ironside's
Yes.
monitor.
Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
That's right. This goes right along with the theme. And we're so close to the Hallows Eve.
Yep. Let me pull that video back up.
Ta-da! And of course, we come up on the episode of episodes. I think everybody remembers. Oh my God, you could actually show the clip too? Awesome.
Yes. I don't know if I can hear the sound.
Oh, and I don't even know if this is the correct clip. I think this is one of the biggest twists. So it's probably not even the whole thing.
Oh, it's just
It's a series of bits.
right. I'll find
But I think that they show most of the one where he shows off.
There we go.
Yeah, there's going to be an invasion because we people from Venus had exactly the same idea as you Martians, you silly, silly guys.
Oh,
Absolutely hysterical.
that
Yeah,
is so
wrong
good.
clip. Will the
That's
real
right.
Martian please stand up? Absolutely fantastic. Oh, Rod Serling, you smoking genius.
All right, you're up here.
Okay. To Serve Man. Season 3, episode 24. God, this happened so early in this run. Okay. Beware of aliens bearing gifts when tall telepathic Conomites appear with technological solutions to all of Earth's problems. They claim their only motive is disinterested benevolence. And who could remain skeptical for too long when they make arid lands blossom and provide each nation with an unbreakable force field? But there's a fault in all of this perfection, something that hangs on the translation of a text one of the Conomites left behind. To Serve Man has one of the show's best endings with a stinger that almost acts as a punchline, turning the whole episode into a very dark and very memorable joke. It's so true. I mean, this is almost an origin point for memeing.
Right.
I mean, memeing.
And so many shows and movies have this almost exact plot. You know, these aliens come and they're helping us do all these things, rid us of disease and drought and hunger and all these things, but they have an ulterior motive. That show, and
Soylent Green has a similar punchline. It's made out of humans.
yeah,
Right? That's the Charlton Heston picture. And, Planet of the Apes is another one with a similar punchline at the end where it's like, oh my God, we've never left the Earth.
yeah,
It's one of those punchlines that M. Night Shyamalan tried to stake a whole career on, but it basically destroyed his whole career because
yeah,
once you saw his ending, you could never watch the movie again, with the exception of
yeah,
maybe one or two of them.
yeah.
I mean, The Sixth Sense
That's
is the
crazy.
only one that becomes a bigger picture because of the ending. Everything else
Yeah.
seems to break down under the weight of knowing all
And
that.
you know what? I think I've only seen that one time.
The Sixth Sense?
Yeah, The Sixth Sense. I don't think anybody has watched. I mean, there have been, but not very many people have watched that for a second time.
Yeah, this is the problem with a lot of M. Night's films in the first place, is that they're not really rewatchable because the punchline is such a destructive part, a component of the plot, that it's like, wait a second. You know what? I'm not even gonna. Most of them destroy the plot line, but in The Sixth Sense, it actually elevates the entire plot line to a whole new level. So
Yeah.
it becomes rewatchable because of it being recontexted at the finish
Right.
line.
Right. And it's almost like, the ice sculptures. M. Night Shyamalan built this ice sculpture of The Sixth Sense, and then it melts at the end.
Yeah.
But in a good way, though. It's
in a very good way. The reason why I like The Sixth Sense as a rewatchable film is because the scene where he's finally telling Bruce Willis what his secret is, the second viewing allows the scene to become so terrifyingly ironic. Because Bruce Willis is like, you see dead people in your dreams? He's like, no. He's like, occasionally? He's like, no, I see them all the time. And he's literally talking to a ghost
right.
that is only seeing what he wants to see. So the kid is brave enough to say this to a creature that he's not sure how they're going to react. So the whole film gains this whole other layer. And you get to see that Bruce Willis's character is actually almost a messiah to this kid because he's not frightened of this ghost.
Yeah.
So, and you don't know that
And
until
then,
you've watched it through one time.
Yeah. And then when you figure out that Bruce Willis's character is a ghost, you start thinking about all those scenes, and you realize they were it was telling you that he was a ghost the entire time.
Yeah, it was all evidence. And it was only because you either took possession of Bruce Willis's character or you were agreeing with her character. Like, this guy's working too much and she feels lonely. Why is he being such a dick? And you could almost, you would interpret it. And this is kind of what M. Night's saying about the spirit realm, is that you can delude yourself very easily in the spirit world. Because the spirit world is willing to show you whatever it wants to show you.
Yeah.
So of course he's going to see a girlfriend. He's going to see his woman be with another man. He's going to see her being angry, and it's always going to be perfect timing with him not grabbing the check quick enough. So it looks like she's going to pay for it and she's going to snub him. But no, she's having dinner by herself.
Yeah, right. Melvin has more details on that movie.
Oh, the box. Yes. Get a visit from a stranger. Oh, Frank Langella's in it too. Gives them a box with a button on top. They push that button, they'll get rich, but someone they don't know will die. Oh, weird.
Wow.
Okay, so that's different than the Twilight episode I was looking up. There's another Twilight Zone episode that's similar in tone, but it's also called The Box, but it's from the 80s run of the Twilight Zone. It may have been in the film.
Yeah, I remember this. There was a Simpsons episode.
Yeah. It's a bakery book. Everybody's going to be turned into donuts.
Yes.
Is that really what happens? I'm just guessing.
I don't know. I don't remember the details of it. Okay.
This is great.
Oh,
Oh boy, this episode.
And for people who missed it,
you're a bad man. You're a very bad man.
And this kid was lost in space.
Yep.
He was in Babylon 5. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, he makes Haley Joel Osment look like an okay actor. I mean, this kid's killing it. And then he does an entire television series where he's basically got the whole thing on his shoulders. Him and a robot.
Oh, those were really fun, campy shows.
Oh,
I
Lost
liked
in
that
Space
they
was
were.
so much fun, man. It
Yeah,
was
it
Saturday
was.
morning cartoons, Star Trek style.
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
Okay.
the CW can't even come close.
No. No.
That's right,
Okay.
Blair to Blair.
It's
Bill
a
Mummy.
no.
Grew up to play a
Okay.
bonehead.
Yep. It's a Good Life, season 3, episode 8. Kids are great, but they can also be capricious,
Capricious?
capricious,
Capricious.
impulsive, and destructive. Their curiosity encompasses wonder and imagination, but it can also lead to questions like, what happens if I aim this magnifying glass at an ant?
Mm.
It's a Good Life knows all of this, and it uses it as the backdrop to what might be the series' scariest episode. It stars Anthony, Billy Mummy, a 6-year-old boy with nearly godlike powers. Anthony can do whatever he wants, so the miserable adults around him need to keep up their fixed smiles and make sure to think happy thoughts. It's hard to think of a worse situation to be stuck in, and the actors all do a great job conveying their exhaustion and despair. This is as dark as the Twilight Zone gets, and we just have Anthony, and we just have
We just
as it
hope.
gets, and we just hope Anthony doesn't learn we ranked it just a little shy of number 1 spot.
You're a bad reviewer. You're a bad reviewer.
Oh man.
Okay, so try and convince me that this is not the inspiration for the entire season of WandaVision.
Oh, that nightmare.
Well, I mean, she has superpowers that she's not even entirely conscious of, and everybody in the village is basically has to accept that they're living in WandaVision world.
Yeah.
It's very similar stuff, isn't it?
And for the life of me, I do not know why they think they make Wanda the victim in all of that.
Well, I'm sure this boy would be considered a victim, especially since he was a ginger.
Probably, yeah.
But at least he's a
Yeah,
child. He's got an excuse.
the first in the first of it, I don't remember. I think it's the milkman comes up, and Anthony is playing with a creature he's made up. Doesn't even show it, but it's a good scene. And then he's like, I'm done with this. Go away," and it disappears. It's really weird. It doesn't even show it, but it's really a good good part.
Any time where a child gains superpowers is always terrifying. What was the name of that? I think it's called Chronicles, about 3 teenagers that are all bullied teenagers. They all get superpowers, and one of them basically turns into a supervillain because he was the most bullied.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Because when young people gain incredible powers, there's always a danger of immaturity intervening on their morality.
Yeah. Which is really what the X-Men, they have to go to a school to learn how to control themselves.
Yeah. In a real world, in a more grounded universe than the X-Men universe ever got a chance to be, in cinema and in comic books, the U.S. government would wholly condone Xavier's school. They would be dumping money on him. Please take all these kids off these damn streets. Put them in your school. We'll expand the property. Let's do this. How many acres underground
Right.
do you want to go? Let's build it for him. You know, like this guy can handle all of these guys. He could cancel out these powers with his mind.
Right.
You know, let's fund
That's
this guy.
what if Xavier is Anthony all grown up?
Yeah, could you imagine? Well, he certainly would have had the potential between him and Jean Grey. That's basically what we've got here. But
Yeah.
the House of M is a lot like this too in the book series with Wanda in the comic books. She basically erases all mutants from the earth in a heartbeat because she just doesn't want to be a mutant anymore. Something like that occurs. You know, and that's all inspired by this one silly episode, and God knows where this came from.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
All right, here.
Melvin Deeply coming up with the friggin' kernels. Wasn't there a sequel to this episode in one of the later Twilight Zone series? There might have been.
Well, it was in the movie. Movie.
Was he in the movie? Well, they did a feat. They did a contemporary
like
retake.
Yeah, right.
A reimagining of the movie, of the book, and it was of the episode, and it was much more horrifying. But
Yeah.
something about these old black and white staged.
But that one had a happier ending though.
What, did he mature in that one?
Huh?
Did he mature in that one where he like suddenly realized that he needed to be better?
Well, I think
forget
he's
how
like,
that one concluded.
His mother is dead, and it's just his dad or something, and a woman comes into the village, or whatever, and it like softens him. He sees what he's done, or something like that. From what I remember, I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, you know, and we're struggling trying to remember all of these episodes, and there's only about 100 and change, right? Meanwhile, somebody walks up to you and goes, "Have you ever seen Doctor Who?" And you're like, "No." And it's like, "Oh, dude, you should totally get into Doctor Who." I'm like, wait, there's like 14 doctors, and each one of them has got at least one season. How many episodes is that? And they're like, "Oh, a few hundred." And it's like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. And this is a connected universe with a book series attached as well. Good grief.
Yeah. I only got introduced to the newer Doctor Who's, and only watched 3 of those Doctors.
Those are some pretty solid episodes. You're talking about the ones that happened in the early turn of the century, right? Like early 2000s.
Yeah.
And that was the second rebirth, because the first rebirth happened in the mid 80s.
Yeah. I forget the first guy who started in the 2000s.
Well, he's currently in House of Dragons, isn't he? Or is it David Tennant was the first one in the early 2000s?
No,
I forget what their order was.
It was the guy that was in the first G.I. Joe movie. He played the bad guy.
Right. Yeah, he played Deathstroke.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it was Tennant, and then it was can never remember how to pronounce his name.
I just call him Dragon Boy because right now he's Mr. Dragon Boy.
Right.
Pretty white-haired Dragon Boy.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, I've still got a whole bunch of like Flaccid Phoenix in my soul right now because I was with them earlier this morning. So everything's a little homoerotic.
Oh, careful there.
It's so easy with those guys.
Keep it G. All right, you're up.
Okay, and this episode, another Shatner episode on my watch. Fantastic. All right, number 4 on this list is Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, Season 5, Episode 3. Wow, this is another one that's really late in the season. Yeah. That's really, really fantastic. Okay. Since Nightmare at 20,000 Feet is so iconic, it's easy to think that the original episode may have lost some of its power through overexposure. But trust us, this is a well-constructed and as gripping as ever. William Shatner plays Robert Wilson, a man returning home after a stint in a psychiatric hospital. I forgot that part. His previous breakdown happened on an airplane, making his flight feel like a test of his new stability. His anxiety to prove that everything's fine now. But then, as you probably know, he sees a mysterious creature on the wing of the plane. Yes, the gremlin in this episode is unmistakably a man in a furry costume, but it really doesn't matter. The important part of this episode is Robert's dilemma. How much does he trust himself? What will happen if he doesn't intervene? This high-stakes human drama and the paranoia and tension that come with it make Nightmare at 20,000 Feet an immortal episode. Indeed, so immortal that I used a GIF of him exclaiming how he's telling the truth. He's not having a delusion, is the GIF I used to advertise the show on Twitter. That's how iconic this is.
Yep. Oh, man. And his performance in this is really good, too. Shatner's.
And this is all pre-Kirk.
Yeah. Yep. You know what? Wasn't it this episode of the Twilight Zone that got him the job of Kirk?
It might have. Because, he's a man in a ship dealing with alien creatures.
Yep.
I
I've
am not
seen
crazy.
I've seen a cut of this where they morphed the newer version with this one. So they've got the newer gremlin.
Yeah, I like that the gremlin in this one is a little silly looking because it's almost like he can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's they're not trying to suspend your disbelief. They're almost mocking your belief, which is what the creature is doing to him. Like, is he really crazy? Is this a delusion? And you're so left struggling over his mental stability that you forget that the creature looks ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, with that face, that same sculpted weird face thing that they're doing.
Yeah, watching this as a little kid, it did scare me.
Well, especially when he starts tearing apart the engine and stuff.
Yeah. And he opens the curtain on the window and it's right there in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Melvin, the Doctor Who before David Tennant was Christopher Eccleston was the bad guy in Thor Dark World. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the same actor in there as well.
Yeah, and the climax of this episode too, there's a air marshal on the plane, and he grabs his gun and pulls and of course he's sitting at the emergency exit window, so he can just open the window.
Yeah, who puts a recovering psychiatric patient next to an emergency exit? I mean, seriously, guys, talk about plot devices. I want to see somebody create a meme where the black and white William Shatner pulls the curtain back, and just outside the window is Khan.
Yeah.
From Wrath of Khan, going, buried alive.
That would be good. I may have to try that.
Somebody should mash that up.
Yes.
That'd be some good mash.
I will do it. I will mash it.
And then it goes straight to Khan!
Yeah.
Hysterical.
Yes.
Isn't the climax of this
Stephen Ransom, my idea guy for memes.
A man barely alive, but we can re-meme him.
Okay. Number 4. Ooh. Eye of the Beholder.
Yeah.
Season 2, episode 6.
Get more of these putty faces.
Yes, the great putty faces. Eye of the Beholder is one of the most famous Twilight Zone episodes ever, and with just cause. Even if you guess the twist, or for that matter, go in spoiled by decades of pop culture references, you're still left with a tour de force,
Tour de force.
tour de force of an episode, one grounded in strong performances, clever direction, and thought-provoking themes. Janet, played by Maxine Stewart and Donna Douglas, played by two different people, is on her 11th hospital stay. Her face is swathed in bandages, and she's stuck in limbo, waiting to know if this time, on the last try, she's legally allowed. She will be normal instead of ugly. If this latest treatment doesn't adjust Janet's future features, then she's out of options. She can go into exile with others of her kind, or she can be executed by a state so obsessed with conformity that debating its value qualifies as treason. Eye of the Beholder is a quintessential Twilight Zone episode that shapes what the show means to people.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot about it being in a almost a dystopian future of conform at all costs.
Yeah, they were dealing with a lot of this during the 60s. I mean, the beauty queen was an actual thing for a lot of girls. And, you know, it's plot lines like this that gave rise to things like bulimia and anorexia as well.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole culture coming up through magazines focused on women constantly trying to re-vanitize themselves.
Yeah. And I think today, even with the internet, it has gotten even worse in some cases.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, God, with all the OnlyFans nonsense going on and everybody twerking all over the place.
Terrible. And then you have the parents taking their kids to get sex change operations.
I know. It's
insane.
There should almost be a colorized version of the Twilight Zone so that everybody can get themselves fully immersed in how long we've been discussing these issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, imagine this being an episode where we don't even get to see her hands, right? And the entire cast is all African American.
Yeah.
And when they finally pull her mask off, when they finally pull the bandages off, she's still white. And she has to go into an isolation camp because she's still white. I mean, that would be how you would re-execute this episode.
Yeah. And it would work. That would work.
Yeah, as a woke version or as an anti-woke version.
Hello there, R2. Thanks for dropping by.
Indeed.
Okay, 2 left. And
Night,
you are
Mel.
up, sir.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yes, this episode. Just going to wait for it to cycle up onto the screen. I see your cursor. It's only 9 seconds behind, so I have a little time to riff as I get into it. Time Enough at Last. Ironic title in my holding off to wait for the screen to cycle up for me. Yes. Time Enough at Last centers on mild-mannered Henry Bemis, played by Burgess Meredith. We've seen him before. The consummate bookworm, Henry reads whatever he can get the chance, whenever he can get the chance, which isn't very often. Everyone around him looks down on his passion for books. His wife, played by Jacqueline DeWitt, even takes pleasure in destroying them just to vent her frustrations at how having her husband who reads poetry and doesn't fit the right suburban and professional molds. Yeah, see what I mean about conformity? That we were already living in a dystopia, even in the 60s.
Yeah.
But then, in a twist of fate, Henry is the lone survivor of a nuclear blast. Lonely and despairing, he decides he doesn't want to live in this desolate world. But then he sees the public library. So many of the books are still intact. He still has books. He still has all the time, and he has all the time in the world now. If you don't know the ending of Time Enough at Last, we won't spoil it for you, but we will. Let's just say that it's maybe the most famous in the series, and that while the Twilight Zone sometimes doles out cosmic justice, sometimes fortune, alas, is random. Yeah, how he could be so foolish and irresponsible with his glasses is
Yeah.
astonishing to me.
Oh,
I mean, he leans over and they fall off his face or something like that.
yeah. And actually, leading up to the blast that happens, he catches him, but alas,
Yeah, it's foreshadowed, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Yeah, what's not fair is that you don't pick up those pieces of glass as if they were made out of platinum.
Yeah.
And just check any of those chunks of glass to see if you could still see.
Yeah. I don't actually, he drops them, but it doesn't break. Then he goes looking for them and steps on them. So it's like not much left of the glass.
Yeah. To me, this is a very interesting episode, but I wouldn't put this in the top 5. I mean, it is very interesting, but the end is kind of a soft punchline in comparison to some of the others.
Yeah. It's still a good one. I love it. Is a good episode, but yeah,
it's classic Twilight Zone because the punchline at the end is very, very dark humor. It's very dark.
Yeah,
fate.
It is. Yeah. Oh, got some new people coming in here.
Oh, nice. Who else have we got here?
IDM 7.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Daniel's been in here before, hasn't he? Hey, Daniel. The famous glasses episode. Probably the most referenced Twilight Zone episode. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do any sort of hot Cheetos anywhere. Probably not even in my mouth.
No.
Nostrils?
Ouch.
Probably not.
No. Ouch. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, how does that work? They don't do copyright infringement when it comes to tributes, right? So how does that work?
Oh, here R2 says this would be like having a stockpile of canned food only to break your only one can opener.
Yep. Yeah. Or to buy one that you think is going to work, bring it home and find out that it bends, that it's made out of softer metal than the damn can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's great.
I had that happen to me recently. Damn things. Using a hammer and a chisel because you're starving.
Yeah. And Number 1, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Yeah, this is a very deserving number 1.
Yeah, it is. Season 1, episode 22. A sadly timeless allegory, The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, is a study of how swiftly and brutally we can descend into suspicion, scapegoating, and violence. The suburban Maple Street is as ordinary as can be, until a mysterious humming shape flashes overhead and the lights go out. Even the cars won't start. When a boy insists that he's read stories just like this one, stories about alien invaders who look just like us, everyone laughs it off at first. But soon the people of Maple Street start pointing fingers, stargazing, and ham radios are dragged out as evidence of questionable behavior, proof that someone is not like us. It gets even worse once things start working again. Why is he so special that his car gets to start? Why did the power come back on at their house? The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street obviously works as a fable about McCarthyism, but it can apply equally well to more current situations until people learn better. This one will feel universal, and it hasn't lost any of its potency yet.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine, again, as a woke allegory would be the lockdown, and some kid literally says, hey, I saw a science fiction show that was almost exactly like us having to be locked down because of a virus. Right. Which would be me, because I've read dozens of sci-fi stories with the exact same premise we just lived through over the last 3 years. Hysterical.
Yes.
And then somebody gets to come out of lockdown. Somebody gets special privileges.
Yeah. Why does he get special privileges?
Yeah.
Has he had the shot?
That's right.
Put your mask on.
Yep. Yep. And you can just roll out the plot line right after that. That's right. And this one's basically the generic defect of humanity. That's right. Suspicion of the herd.
Yeah, and the ending too. At the beginning of it, their cars won't start or anything, so they send somebody to like the courthouse or something. And that's at the beginning, and at the end of it, you see this dark shape of a person walking down the street. Mm-hmm. And they all freak out, and somebody pulls a gun and shoots him. And they find out, oh, that was so-and-so we sent earlier. And then all on the street, all the lights and stuff start flashing on and off.
Yeah.
And it zooms out, and there's aliens watching as the people tear themselves apart.
Yep. And one alien says to the other one, yeah, we've been doing this experiment and it works in every single city. All we got to do is make them think that they're all aliens and they'll wind up killing each other. He's like, oh, well, that's good news for the invasion plan then.
Such a good one.
Well, again, if you compare that to like some of the current events we're going through right now, good grief. I mean, we're really at each other's throats at this point, aren't we?
Yeah. About every little thing.
Yep.
Crazy.
What's crazy is that it could be an alien invasion and we'd be called the crazy ones for even saying such a thing. They'd be like, no, it's just typical human behavior. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, and too, you think of the Soviet Union was doing this, sending their spies over here and trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, using the tactic of what was being generated by our own government in the form of Cold War paranoia.
Yeah.
They could actually use that against us by just laying evidence on somebody they wanted to eliminate.
Yeah. Man.
And we
Crazy.
probably did the same thing to them.
Yeah. Man, that was a crazy time. And it looks like we're coming up on another crazy time, or in the start of a crazy time.
Oh, we're deep into the mid we're almost at the eye of the storm.
Yeah.
I think the eye of the storm is going to be in America, November 5th, 2023.
But remember, the eye of the storm is calm.
Yes. I think that there's going to be a very calm period for a very brief period of time between this election year and the next election year.
Yeah. And then we're going to get hit with the backside of the storm.
Yep. Right around 2024. As the election cycle for 2024 starts rolling in, I think we are going to see a new escalation of all of this. That's just speculation. I'm not a political scientist. That's me just being a sci-fi geek speculating.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
That's right. Knock on wood or anything that resembles it.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been a really good episode.
Yeah, we just clocked 2.5 hours of continuous Twilight Zone joy.
Yes.
That was a good solid list too, with great narrative.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It took me a while to find that one, but yeah, that was a good list. Well, do you have anything going on later this week, or?
Let me just double check what I've got coming up. What do I have coming up? Let me see here. Nope, that's way too far down the list. Yeah, to be honest with you, I think the only thing I've got really coming up in 3 days, I'm on PJ Maybe's. That's November 2nd. That's going to be, it says noon, but it's supposed to be at noon. It says 1 p.m., but I think we have a time shift coming up soon.
Yes, we do. I think it's next Saturday, I think.
Yeah. We're going to, and I don't think England is on because this is going to be a UK show, but PJ Maybe, we're doing a review of the classic movie, The Sting.
I saw that. I have that scheduled to watch.
And I know I've got other stuff coming up in between, but as soon as I schedule it, you'll see it on my Twitter. So keep your eyes out.
All right. I think I'm not doing much next week. I think I'm just going to do like a art stream. I think work on an artwork or something. But
that's good, man. It's good to expand. And something I suggested to Ginger Ninja is to do to try and clip some shorts out of it.
Yeah.
Just almost as advertising ticks,
Yeah, it's a good idea. I'll have to try that out. Well, let me just go through the chat and say hello or say goodbye to everybody that came in.
Indeed.
Pilgrim LC, Dead Punk, Miss Martin Muses, Wakazashi's Tea House, Melvin Deeply, Daniel.
We had Zach's popped in here.
Zach's popped in, yeah.
Blair to Blair came by.
Blair.
The lovely Sherry was
and
tiptoeing through the tulips.
At the end there, IDM7. Thank y'all for coming
R2
by.
R2 the Icky as well.
Yeah, R2. I forgot. Sorry about that. R2. Thank y'all for coming and hanging out with us and listening to us talk Twilight Zone.
Indeed. Always worth a good rewatch too, because some of these episodes are impossible to get old. They have infinite rewatchability.
Yeah, they do. And some of them I haven't even seen. Haven't even heard of. So it'll be good to go back and watch those. have a good night, everybody, and we'll I'll see y'all next time.
Indeed. See you in the future.
Yeah, and I'll hit the exit.